I never imagined a last-minute trip to Paris would turn into something unforgettable, or that a single night could change the course of my life. I'd planned the getaway as a spontaneous escape from my routine, a way to breathe, wander, and lose myself in the city of love. But nothing prepared me for him. I first noticed him at the tiny airport cafe, a stranger with an easy smile and eyes that seemed to laugh even when he wasn't speaking. Our conversation started casually. Flight delays, the weather, favorite pastries, but there was an undeniable spark, a warmth I couldn't ignore. By the time we boarded the plane, we had exchanged names, numbers, and a hesitant but knowing glance that suggested this trip would be more than sightseeing. Our adventure began innocently enough, wandering cobblestone streets, sipping café au lait, and sharing stories beneath the glow of street lamps. But then, the hotel mishap happened. Somehow, due to a booking error, there was only one room available, and one bed. The receptionist tried to apologize, to offer alternatives, but we were stuck. He shrugged and offered a teasing smile. "Looks like we're roommates for the night. Hope you don't mind me." I laughed nervously, feeling a flutter in my chest. At first, we tried to act normal, sitting on opposite sides of the bed, pretending there was a comfortable distance. But the city had cast its magic over us. The way the moonlight spilled through the window, painting the room in silver, made every glance, every accidental brush of skin, charged with electricity. Hours passed as we shared wine and stories, laughter softening into quiet, lingering silences. He leaned closer to point out the lights of Paris in the distance, and suddenly, the gap between us felt unbearable. My heart raced as our hands brushed, once, twice, and then hesitated, each of us aware of the tension simmering between curiosity and desire. It was inevitable. One moment we were talking, the next, our lips met, hesitant, questioning, and then urgent. Heat spread through me, every worry and hesitation melting in the intimacy of that kiss. The city outside disappeared. It was only us, and the rhythm of our bodies matching the pulse of Paris at night. The bed beneath us became a stage for discovery, touches, whispered confessions, and breaths mingling in ways I had only ever imagined. But beyond the physical connection, there was something deeper, an unexpected emotional pull. Every laugh, every gentle caress, every hesitant "are you sure?" built a trust, a vulnerability I hadn't anticipated sharing with a stranger. Hours slipped by in a haze of passion and tenderness, the world outside forgotten. We explored each other, not just in body, but in heart. Between the stolen kisses and heated touches, we shared dreams, regrets, and the silent acknowledgement that neither of us expected to find this connection here. Morning came, and with it, the soft glow of dawn spilling through the curtains. We lay tangled together, quiet and content, listening to the city waking below. There were no regrets, only the lingering heat of a night neither of us would ever forget. Paris had given us one bed, one night, and a love we didn't plan for. And somehow that was enough. It was more than enough. The trip continued, but nothing could erase the memory of that night. Every corner of the city reminded us of the closeness we'd found, the passion that had sparked between strangers, and the truth that sometimes love arrives unannounced, unexpected, fiery, and utterly consuming. And as I boarded the flight home, I carried more than souvenirs. I carried a story, a memory, and a connection that had begun in a single, unforgettable night. One bed in Paris, under the stars, where hearts collided and nothing would ever be the same again. After that unforgettable night, Paris felt different. Every street corner, every cafe, every bridge over the Seine seemed to hum with possibility. I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way his hand had lingered on mine, the warmth of his breath on my neck, and the way he had looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. We spent the next day wandering through Montmartre, laughing as we got hopelessly lost in its winding streets. He teased me mercilessly whenever I tried to navigate with my tiny paper map, but I didn't mind. I liked the ease of our banter, the way his presence made everything lighter, more thrilling. By mid-afternoon, We found a quiet little cafe tucked behind a florist shop. We sat outside, the air filled with the scent of fresh flowers and baked pastries. He reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from my face. That simple gesture made my heart skip. "You're impossible to stop thinking about," he murmured. I tried to hide my blush, but it was useless. By evening, we were sitting on a bench along the Seine, watching the city lights dance on the water. The world felt infinite and intimate at the same time, like it had shrunk just for the two of us. He took my hand, holding it like it belonged to him, and I didn't pull away. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if things weren't so complicated?" he asked softly. I felt a shiver run through me. "Complicated?" I whispered. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing mine. "Us. This, whatever this is. One night, one bed, it feels like it shouldn't be real. But it is." I closed my eyes, letting the weight of his words sink in. And just like that, the gentle night turned electric again. We kissed, slower this time, savoring the moment. Every touch was charged, every glance lingering a second too long. My body remembered the night before, craving him with a hunger I hadn't expected. Later, we returned to the apartment. Sharing that one bed again was a different experience this time. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness, just anticipation. He pulled me close, and I could feel the rapid beat of his heart against mine. Our kisses grew more urgent, our hands exploring with a delicious familiarity. The night stretched endlessly, a perfect rhythm of whispered names, stolen kisses, and soft moans mingling with laughter. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, the city of Paris glowing softly outside the window, and I realized that this connection was no longer just passion. It was intimacy, trust, and an unexpected, thrilling love. The following days were a blur of exploration and stolen moments. We visited the Louvre, holding hands as we wandered through galleries, sneaking touches when no one was looking. We climbed to the top of Sacré-Cœur, sharing a quiet kiss overlooking the city. At night, our bed became a sanctuary where every look, every brush of skin, and every whisper deepened our bond. Yet, beneath all the excitement, there was an undercurrent of reality. I didn't know how this would survive beyond Paris. He was from another city, with a life I wasn't a part of. And I wasn't sure if I could handle the intensity of what we were building. On our last night, we sat on the balcony, the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the distance. We didn't speak much. Words felt unnecessary. Our hands intertwined, fingers laced as if they had always belonged together. And then he kissed me, slow, deep, and unforgettable, as if trying to memorize every inch of me before we parted ways. "I don't want this to end," he whispered. "Neither do I admitted, my voice trembling. We stayed out there for hours, holding each other close, the city humming below us. Paris had given us one bed, one night, and one perfect, passionate week. But more than that, it had given us something we hadn't expected, a love that had ignited without warning, fierce and undeniable. As I packed my suitcase the next morning, I realized that this trip had changed me. I wasn't the same woman who had arrived in Paris alone and uncertain. I was someone who had dared to embrace desire, connection, and the intoxicating possibility of love. And though I didn't know what the future held, I knew one thing with certainty. Paris, and him, would always be a part of me. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the room. I stirred slowly, feeling the weight of him pressed against me. For a moment, I didn't want to move. There was a sweetness in the way we lingered together, breathing in sync, fingers entwined, and the quiet intimacy that comes from knowing someone deeply, even after just a few days. He stirred beside me, smiling sleepily, brushing a soft kiss across my temple. "Good morning," he whispered, his voice husky and low. "Good morning," I replied, a blush creeping over my cheeks. I turned to face him fully, letting my fingers trace the line of his jaw. "We don't have to get up yet, you know." He chuckled, a sound that always made my stomach flutter. "I think we both know we could stay here forever. But Paris is waiting, and so are croissants." Reluctantly, we left the cocoon of our bed and ventured out into the city. The morning air was crisp, carrying the aroma of freshly baked bread and strong coffee. We wandered through a small market, sampling cheeses, fruits, and pastries, teasing each other over who picked the better baguette. Every touch, accidental or intentional, sent shivers through me. The connection we had in the apartment only seemed to grow stronger outside, more playful and exhilarating. By afternoon, we found ourselves sitting along the Seine with a small bottle of wine, watching boats drift lazily by. He leaned close, resting his head on my shoulder, and I let out a soft sigh, feeling completely at ease with him. "You know," he murmured, his lips near my ear, "I never thought a spontaneous trip would turn into this." I smiled, pressing my cheek against his. Neither did I. And yet, here we are, like we were meant to find each other in this city. As evening fell, we dressed for a night out. The streets of Paris transformed, lights twinkling in reflection on wet cobblestones. We wandered aimlessly, discovering tiny jazz clubs tucked away in quiet alleys, the music wrapping around us as if the city itself encouraged our closeness. We danced together, close enough that every movement pressed us together, every brush of skin heightening the tension we both knew was inevitable. Back at the apartment, the single bed awaited, inviting and familiar. This time, there was no hesitation, just desire, deep and consuming. We explored each other with more confidence, the intimacy building naturally, passionately, yet tenderly. Our bodies moved in rhythm, each touch, each whisper, a reaffirmation of the connection we had forged. Hours later, we collapsed together, exhausted and satisfied, hearts beating in unison. I felt a depth of emotion I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just lust, it was trust, affection, and a profound sense of belonging. The following days were a whirlwind of discovery, hidden cafes, rooftop gardens, and quiet streets where we stole kisses behind flower stalls and in shadowed archways. Each day we spent together deepened our bond, every glance and touch carrying the weight of the previous night's passion and the anticipation of the next. One afternoon, while sitting on a quiet balcony overlooking the Seine, he turned to me with a serious expression. "I don't want this to end when we leave Paris," he said softly. I felt my heart tighten. "Neither do I admitted, fear and hope mingling. "But what can we do? We live in different cities, different worlds." He smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "Then we make it work. Somehow." It was a promise I wanted to believe. The city that had brought us together had also shown me the courage to embrace something I never expected, a love that was as intoxicating as it was real. Paris had given us one bed, countless nights of laughter and longing, and a love we hadn't planned for. And even as I packed my suitcase to leave, I knew that this story, our story, was far from over.